All right. Well, this is the symbol of an organization I had called the Paranormal Investigation Organization that I started in March 1992. And that is a drawing of 3 flying saucers I saw falling in a Gemini spacecraft. I don't remember the year, but I was in high school at the time. And this civil engineer, he put his telescope out in the front yard. Him and his son were looking at the Gemini craft, and I said, I'd like to see it. And he goes, sure, So I looked through the telescope, and I was in shock at what I saw. I kept looking at it. I didn't see anything right away, and I said, it looks like 3 flying saucers. There were 3 very bright round discs, one at the top, one at the left, one at the right of the craft. And I looked at them and I said, oh my God, that's what it looks like, 3 flying saucers. And I'm saying, I can't be the only one who can see this. So I finally, look at the father, and, he looks at me and says, well, did you see it? I go, yes, I saw it, all right. You know what else I saw? And he goes, what? I 3 flying saucers. And he looks at me, looks at his son like, what? And he goes, you're joking? And I go, no, I'm serious. I just saw 3 flying saucers. I know it sounds silly, but that's what I saw. So his son looked through it, and he did. They didn't see the flying saucers. So I looked through it again, and they weren't there. All right, to make a long story short, I went to the store in Bridgewater, in the plaza there, where Roach Brothers is, and there was a bookstore. I used to buy my female bodybuilding magazines and my detective magazines. I looked for a UFO magazine, and I bought it. And guess what it said in the magazine? They were talking about the same thing I saw, and they called them bogies. They said 3 bogies have been following them. That was it after that. After that article, I was like, oh my God, I don't believe this, But somebody else must have seen it. I can't be the only one who have seen this thing on land, So I'll never forget that. It was very interesting. This is a drawing creature I saw that the Native American Indians call Sasquatch, and the Americans in America call Bigfoot. I'm not saying that it was Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I'm simply saying that it looked like it was, and I drew the drawing as best I could. I'm not an artist, but I did a very good job because it looks exactly what I saw, about 200 feet away from a pond. It says 100 feet on the slide there, but I've made a mistake. It was actually, when I went back to the area, I noticed it was basically about 200 feet. And so that's exactly what it looks like. I never got to see it, the face, but it walked very slowly, sort of like Frankenstein. And maybe there was someone walking in the woods in a monkey suit. All I know is that is exactly what I saw. And there was this half-Indian guy that used to tell me about it all the time, and how him and his uncle went in the woods, and how his uncle shot what they thought was a bear, and it suddenly gave out a sound like half human, half animal cry of pain. They went to the site where it was shot. They found blood on some leaves and some long dark brown hair. And so, the more I heard about it, the more fascinated I was. And of course, after I saw it with my own eyes, I knew that it was actually real. And that's, again, somebody's out there in a monkey suit. All right, I can't use any last names here either, because although he assigned my permission sheet, but this is your movie, so I don't know if I should use his last name here.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Okay, but the guy in the middle is Jim R. He sent me more information than anybody else has sent me. He had an expedition team in there. He claimed it called the Nightmares. And he lived on Elm Street. I don't know if he still does, but him and his 2 other expedition members, and I say that politely because his mother told me they never went on any expedition, but one of his letters was extremely interesting. He said that as he followed some trail deep into the Hockomock Swamp, they found my name carved on a tree that Mike and I had just carved the names on this tree on top of some small hill we found when we were on the deep foot patrol there. I wanted to continue on the other path on top of the hill, which is the path that that Jim obviously went to, but unfortunately he was too tired, so just carved our names on the tree, sat down. I had my can of octopus. He had his can of sardines. And when we got through eating, we went back down and we went back to our campsite. But Jim claims that when he went to that area with his so-called expedition team members, that one of them carried a tent, but his mother said he was just there to have some fun, hang around and look around. All of a sudden, something threw a big log right at him. They dropped the tent, took off, and ran. Okay. Didn't hear anything, just smelled a funny, musky smell, he said. Then when they returned back, I think the next day, they tried to pick up that log. They said even all three of them, all together, had a heck of a time lifting that log. Something very big and powerful did not want them in that area. There's a drawing of a huge, strange bird that Jim sent me. He said him and his members saw in the Hockomock Swamp. I filled in the colors based on the, his letter that he sent me. He said it was huge. Oh, this is, my first attempt at scuba diving. I didn't do very well, but considering I didn't have any training, I think I was brave to just even try it. But I had some fun that day anyways. The reason why the slide is here is because that other guy you see, whose name is Walter, I won't use his last name, he was in my expedition team, but really he never did get to actually go on any trips. But, I just decided to put it in here. That's the one on the left is Mike Foster, and on the right is Walter. And Mike was doing a pretty good job too, but of course without the training he can't really go out there and do the scuba diving. But we were just wanted to try to learn how to do it so that we could go out in the Hockomock swamps and do it. So at least we had a good time anyway. And that's me on a foot patrol along the Taunton River. That's me getting ready for my first expedition into the Hockomock Swamp with my first expedition team in 1985. We used camouflage uniforms. The canoe on my car is, was Mike's canoe. And as you can see, it is beautiful, and it is a very good canoe. Here I am in Hockomock Swamps in my new uniform in the same canoe again on another expedition. Over here is Mike and Laura and I cannot use her last name since for certain reasons. I'd say just to be on the safe side. We were on an expedition not too far from the other place where we had the expedition. And this is around winter time, which in winter camping I shall not do anymore. Now over here, as you can see, we are target shooting. Now we're teaching her how to use a .22 semi-automatic. I was doing very good at it. I was actually faster than a rifleman. But I had to erase the shooting sounds from the tape because I think some people might get the wrong idea. So, that's when I was doing the shooting. I was going as fast as I could. It was almost like a machine gun. And this is what I was telling you about. Oh, I carved my name on the tree. And then Mike Foster carved his name too, with the year. That thing in the middle is supposed to be crossed, but it didn't come out that well. This photograph, that was taken by Jim, was mailed to me, and then I made a slide out of it. And that's me on a foot patrol in Claybanks. I don't remember the year, but I remember that. Oh yes, okay. I thought there was another slide. All right, this is me in my '82 Camaro after I first bought it, in the new uniform that we were using. I decided to use the safari clothes or expedition clothes because you can see the ticks on it. and other bugs too. It's much better. Plus, I was getting accused of looking military out there. So, this is the image that made the front page of the Cape Way News, and that made some people very nervous. A few of them got very upset. For some reason, didn't like the image, so they sent me a few bad letters. But I think it was about 2 or 3 bad letters. I filed them in the trash where they belong. But it was just target shooting. That's all. And you got to hold that thing very, very hard. I think it has one hell of a kick. Over here, I was doing Portuguese commando military poses because I have a cousin in Portuguese, who's a Portuguese commando. So I just decided to do that, just in my uniform. This is when Mike and I were ice fishing. And we caught a pickerel. We were in a foot patrol that day in a wooded area in Middleborough. The patch on the uniform is a Portuguese national coat of arms, in case anybody's interested. This is me and 2 women that, had joined the expedition team, but never actually got to do any expeditions. Somehow it just didn't work out that way. The woman on the right actually was arrested and went to prison for stabbing her boyfriend many times in the back. I didn't know she was that kind of woman. Someone fixed me up with her. But it's a shame because I think she would have made a good expedition member. Wasn't for that. Over here, I'm standing next to a Portuguese discovery marker in the Dighton Rock Museum with my underwater camera around my neck. And the image on the right is of Miguel Cortrial, a Portuguese explorer who put his, the marks you see on the Dighton Rock. Because these are the American Indian carvings that are on the Dighton Rock. But each of these carvings, the Portuguese and the Native American Indian carvings, are all, been put here separately. I mean, if you were to look at the rock, it would be, with just a big mess. But a French professor, he is the one that figured out which, nationality, how they put it on there. That's the Phoenicians and Norse or Viking marks that were put on the rock. Again, it took the professor to distinguish the differences. And that's me on the front cover of the New Bedford Sunday Standard Times magazine, holding, drawing the creature I saw. That's a very big article. You did a great job. That's me on a river patrol in the Hockomock Swamp. Mike Foster took the slide as I was in my boat heading for land. We went very deep in the swamps. We're getting there. This is my other expedition member. His name is Paul Thomas. I can use his full name because I have his full permission to do that. And he never got to go on any expeditions, but we did go on some foot patrols and river patrols. He's retired now, and he's just too tired to do it, the poor guy. It's the front cover of my first booklet that I wrote. It's like a captain's log about our experiences, that my team and I have had in the Bridgewater Triangle. This is a slide of a woman that had joined as an expedition member, and unfortunately she got in a tragic car accident that I investigated afterwards. And the reason why it's here is because she did become an expedition member, and it's out of respect. And this is when I was on Fox Television on their news program, well, both news programs. The first one was small, the second one was bigger because they said it was more interested in the Bridgewater Triangle. So they came in my office, took some pictures of me, went out to the clay banks and filmed me explaining about my sighting of Bigfoot. That's me holding a bit, a very small squirrel. I love animals. This is a satanic symbol that I saw on a big rock in front of a dirt road that goes into one part of the Hockomock Swamp. There was a number 666, but for some reason when I had got there that day, that number was no longer there. So I was able to get the star. And I do believe it is a satanic star, since the number 666 was also included in the rock when I got there before. This is a slide of a flying squirrel. I cannot take credit for this photograph because I wasn't there at the time, but my mother's holding him. Evidently he was flying inside the room upstairs. That is now my brother's room. But it's interesting. It proves there are flying squirrels for those who do not believe. The squirrel was not harmed, by the way. This is a slide of the area where I saw the creature. And I estimate it to be about 200 feet across. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my estimation. And it's quite a distance. But in the wintertime, there was no branches and stuff, and one could see things more clearly. This is my new expedition member. His name is Richard Fields. And although he's never actually been on any expeditions with my team and I, but unfortunately it's not because he didn't want to, it didn't work out at the time. It's hard to get people together. But over here, we are across the pond where I saw the creature, and we're on a foot patrol. He's got a stick in his hand. What he was doing was banging the stick against the tree. He said he was trying to see if he could perhaps make contact with Bigfoot. This is a sign at the Lake Nipponicket. And that's Lake Nipponicket. The reason why this slide is here, because I've heard a lot of strange things about Lake Nipponicket. Some people say it is the most dangerous, mysterious place in the whole Bridgewater Triangle. Many people have been, disappeared, never seen or heard from again. So I do not know if that's true or not, but that is what I've heard. That is, I believe, the right side of it. Wow. And this is Chief right here. He was the most interesting one to speak to. That man told me a lot of interesting things about the Bridgewater Triangle. He was the most helpful of all. He said, he explained to me how the Indians, why the Bridgewater Triangle, is named that. The Indians cursed the area. And I said, why? Because the white man stole their land, mistreated their people. So I said, but they stole the whole country from you, Why? What's so special about this Bridgewater Triangle? So he said to me, he says, there are a lot of very bad things that have happened in this area that most people do not know about. And of course, he didn't explain them all to me. We didn't talk that long, but he said that it was bad enough so that's why this area has been cursed that much by the Native American people. He also said that, because I told him I find the Indians very interesting, and because I love the wilderness, and I said, there's only one thing I don't like what the Indians have done. He goes, what's that? And he said, I said, I don't believe in scalping. I said, that's to me, that's an evil thing. I'm sorry to tell you that. And he goes, oh no, we don't either. He said, the white man started that. And I said, oh my God, I didn't know that. So that was very interesting. This is a bridge on the Taunton River. The water was very high that day. Although I must admit, the water has been higher. I think it was about a year or so later, the water was incredibly, even much higher than this. And this river actually is higher than usual. That's a snapping turtle I found when Mike and I got out of the, my flat john boat that I had. And I just wanted to, maybe, urinate and just take a, to go in the woods and, take a break. And all of a sudden I heard a sound and I got nervous. I said, oh my God, you know, what could it be? And sure enough, he was heading for the river, so I took a slide of him. That's a snapping turtle. This is a very old little house that I found out there. Now, I'm not an expert on these things, but it looks to me like it's about 200 years of age, and it's been abandoned. We looked around, I couldn't find anything interesting, but was going to go back, but we never did. And this is, you know, a sign in front of the Anawan Rock. Mike Foster and Richard Fields and I went to check out the rock and take some slides of it. This is to show you how high the area is. That was me on the bottom. This is Richard Fields and I sitting on top of the rock in my Bridgewater Triangle t-shirts that I had out. This is behind the rock. This is a slide of Mike Foster and I camping in the woods, a wooded area in Middleborough. And although it's not part of the Hockomock Swamps, but nevertheless, we heard a very strange sounding bird sound. Not on that expedition. That expedition, we didn't really hear anything. Things were quiet. But the sound that I heard, and we both heard, sounded like half human and half bird. I know that sounds strange, but that is what we heard. And for some reason, that scared the heck out of me. And I thought it was this idiot friend, Bob, trying to play games on us. Then all of a sudden, I heard these big wings flapping above us, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, Bob doesn't fly, so it was a real bird. This over here is very dark. You really can't see the tombstone. It's like a gravestone there on the left. And it's a very old stone. I think that thing, like, it's dated around, I think it was 17 something. It's been there a long time. I couldn't make out the name. It's really worn down. There it is. You can see that's very, very old. And this is deep in the wooded area of Middleborough. This is under a wooden bridge in the Hockomock Swamps. The current wasn't that strong that day, but one time it was very incredibly strong. And you have to put your head down in order to get through. And that's what the stone bridge looks like. I took a slide of it when we finally left. And that's it. All right.